So questions. Where it all began. So I want you to imagine for a second the world that was described, all interconnected, all cybersecurity in everybody's mind, and everybody in some way aware of this. But where did it all begin? When we started to enter that mindset of cybersecurity and where this path started for me. I'm going to share a little bit of this journey with you, and I want you to think with me as I describe these anecdotes about the process. Think about the questions and think about the value of those questions as they apply not just to cybersecurity, and not just to a career in technology, but how they apply in general to life. So, for the most part, if we reflect for a moment, just about every decision that we made has to do with a question that was in our minds, a question that we might have become aware of or not, but very likely there was a question in there. Once we found either that we didn't have the information or that we liked the pursuit of something stemming from that question, we initiated a motion and a sequence of events that led to something. In hindsight, we look and it's like, here is the path, here are the milestones, here are the things that happen. But at the moment it begins, we really have no clue. We really don't know where it's going or how is it going to manifest itself. So I'm going to take you back a few decades and share with you some of the insights. The first day I walked in front of a computer. I had no idea what this thing was. What I saw was a screen that has some character, which I didn't call character at the time, it was just like letters. It had a keyboard in front of it, and there was an individual that I knew that was sitting in front of this thing, and I went there and I asked, what is this? And this friend told me, well, this is a computer. I was like, okay, what can you do with this? Well, you can do this and that and the other stuff. He was excited to show me. I think he was doing some graphs and some functions. It looked pretty cool. And then my next question was, and how do I learn about this? And he said, well, you could go talk to a professor over there in this lab, and they have some books. Okay. I walked out of that room, went asked for the book, and started a journey of self-guided study on computer that have never stopped to this day. I can tell you that in the beginning where I started this, I was not in the States. I was back in Cuba. And I didn't speak any English, didn't have access to books. So there were several challenges on top of those, which we're not going to address today. But the point really was how enticing this thing was. The curiosity that is sparked from the moment that I saw this computer and what I could do with it. So in my mind, I was like, I want to do X. I think that one of the first thoughts was, I want to make a game or a program or something. Never did it, but it didn't matter. In the process, I learned so much, and it was like every step of the way was opening a new window, and it was entering into a new phase. More challenges, more opportunities, more challenges, more opportunities, and a theme continued to evolve out of that. So, for starters, just so you have an idea, I began reading this book, practicing some of the stuff. Within maybe 6 to 8 months, I was already writing programs for those computers back in the day, and it was about like 3 different languages to do this, and it was a lot of time sitting in front of that thing because I had no idea what it was telling me. So I had to borrow a dictionary that was a just plain language dictionary translation from English to Spanish, and I started reading the screens and going back to the dictionary and say, okay, what is that word? And they'd find it, and it means this. Obviously not in the context of technology. So, okay, that. Imagine the amount of time it took me to get past a thing that said invalid command. So, but that was not a reason to stop. I continue on this journey, develop more curiosity, or the curiosity developed me, perhaps. And I wanted to understand how this machine worked. It was just like, I want to know, and I want to know. So I started looking into how it worked, what is the inner pieces of it, the parts that make this thing so. And when we talked about memory, I wanted to like, what is it? Can I touch it? Where is this thing? So I wanted to like open this thing up, and I did. I looked, and it's like, that's the memory. Disappointing. It was just, imagine you have the breadboard circuits and the thing in there. It's like, shit, that's the memory. All right. So, but it was good because it helped me anchor that idea of, okay, I'm writing something into memory, and this is where it's going. Fantastic. And information moves inside this thing. Great. And I press a key, and this does something. Signal goes, captures, gets converted, and it ends up in the screen. So now I see it. It's like, begin to put these things in place. So imagine this happening in the mind that didn't know anything about computers. It was learning and absorbing all of this information and trying to learn with the challenges and the language and so forth. So fast forward a little bit, and I'm going to take you in this time travel with me for a second here. Computers back in those days used floppy disks. And yes, I'm that old. So floppy disks would go bad because the media was just that easy to break. And there was this pervasive situation with what we used to call at the time fat table, nothing to do with mass. It was just an allocation table. Or the boot sector, like the very first one. And these things would go bad because we would touch them, interact with them, and it just get damaged. And after that, the computer couldn't read the disk, and you were done. And if you may imagine, back down south, there was no easy access to floppy disks. So this brings me to another point, which is how necessity drives creativity. Right? And we could easily say, well, I can't find the disk, I can't find the books, this thing is too complicated, it's in another language, I don't understand it, so I don't know, I'm just going to become a doctor or something else. Well, not me. So I think I faint with the blood stuff, but that's a different conversation. So I was really taken with that curiosity into this road. So I continued to press on, trying to learn, get more into it. And when this disk started to break on me and there was no alternative, I started to find ways to write my own program so I could access the remaining area of the disks. So I have my floppies, and my friends would try to use, oh, this is bad, whatever. Theirs started to go bad, and I was, oh, I got to throw it. Oh, yeah, you should. Yeah. I grabbed that, and I said, you know what? I got half of this disk, half of that disk, portion of that. That led me to write the code to access the disk, create my own allocation table so that I would know where the file goes, where it begins, where it ends, so I could go there on the disk and read it without relying on the operating system native method to do that. That also took me into the exploration of copyright software. Back then, people would sell the software, but the moment they sell that in that transaction, you get the software and you take it with you, and it's yours. And who could say that we cannot copy it and give it to other people and nobody pays? So they invented copyright protection into the disk. And that was fascinating. It was research. So I learned a lot about how to do things inside the disk and how to hide and how to encrypt and how to move things around. Incredible. That took me onto another path. It's like, well, how do I get to do all of this stuff? Well, essentially, I had to go from high-level languages to the lowest I could go as a human. There is machine language, and then there is a thing that sits above it that the people in tech call it assembly language. It's a thing of the past, I know, but it was wonderful. That thing allowed me to write the programs to do all of this stuff. And I can tell you, if any of you are into IT or have seen how we do computing today, nothing to do with that stuff. Literally, I have this old application which was the same thing as a notepad. You just type text in there, and hopefully what you type is good. And then you take that and you save it into a file, and then you go out, command prompt stuff, right? The same one that said invalid command, I learned it. This time, compile that thing, make it into a program, and then run it. And then guess what? It blows up. It doesn't work. So you have to really go into another thing, and without getting too techy, is called debugger. It's like, get this machine code, like the Matrix, and start looking at what this thing is doing and what is breaking, and fix that stuff. This is very laborious. This was decades ago. But that knowledge, those exercises, those experiences, learning all of these at that level, set up the foundation for the path that came later. I'm going to pause there for a second, fast forward, the advent of the internet. Things started to come up online, and the notion of computers talking to computers was very interesting. It was like, wow, so how do I do this? So I got curious again. Another question, how does that work? How do I make this computer talk to that computer? So I started developing with another friend what it was a failed attempt, another one, of how do I make a protocol to make two computers to talk. So started running in these things. That wasn't successful, but I learned a lot about communication. I learned a lot about how a computer initiates a connection, a communication, how the other one responds. Fantastic. Come to the internet, and mind you, I was not here. I get here, and one of the first things that I wanted to look at and I wanted to see was not the Statue of Liberty. I wanted to see the internet. And so I found a way to get somebody to show me what that was, and I sat there all excited, say, yeah, I'm there, and this thing goes like, me, ma, me, ma. You guys don't know what that is. That was a modem dialing. This thing dials up, connects finally, is a prompt. And I remember it was a Unix prompt using old protocols, dial-up connection, and bam, we are on the internet, and Netscape opens. Another legacy, I know. Dinosaurs. I'm unboning a lot of stuff here. So open Netscape and kind of like landed on some page, who knows what it was, and I turned to the person that was giving me this wonderful tool of life, first time on the internet. That's the internet? I was disappointing. Imagine, I'm coming from this inside the machine, knowing all this, like understanding all of that. It's like, wow. And then I go, it's like, Netscape on a page. It's like, what is this? Well, that is the world that we live in today. Everything that is on the internet, connected, fast lightning. So at that moment, when I arrived, as I mentioned earlier, I spoke no English. All I knew were a few words that I learned from the books that I was able to get my hands on. And so many years, so many anecdotes. I got to tell you this. There was one book I couldn't get my hands on. There was no way I could find it. I mean, it was like, this is the holy grail of what I want to do. But guess what I did when I got here? It was already old. It wasn't good anymore. I wasn't even doing that. But I needed to get that from here out. Okay, I need to have that book. I have it at home. I bought it. So, I come here and I face this challenge that I don't speak the language and I have this knowledge and I want to find an opportunity, and it begins, a new journey. How do I apply all this knowledge, all this stuff that I learned, this passion, this drive for discovery, for asking questions, for finding a way forward? And then I start doing whatever kinds of work, and that may be a talk of another day, a series of challenges up until things started to come together, and I started teaching courses for certifications on technology, started getting involved in a more stable job, and started evolving through all of that, and learning a massive amount of information about how systems work, how systems interconnect, what is required to get these systems in a safe state so that business could operate. And for the most part, everybody out there is experiencing the same thing, the same challenges, almost the same flavor of common technologies. So it's not like we go to one place and it's a different world, and we go to another one, it's a different thing. It's just about the same thing everywhere. A little bit more, a little bit less, but it's the same thing. And this journey ending as a cybersecurity professional with all these years, all this experiencing in the different areas of tech and security have propelled a lot of interesting things in my life. Right now, I'm entering a new stage. I retire from that life, and I'm exploring business and how I could bring all this knowledge of cybersecurity, technology, and business together so that we could solve problems and how we can accelerate things. So right now, the questions in my mind have to do with how do we solve some of these problems that we continue to loop around, that we could never get a good answer? How do we incorporate new technology to solve problems? How do we accelerate progress in a way that can lead us forward faster, more efficiently? So I want to invite you to consider the questions along this journey, because all I had in the beginning were like 3 questions day one, and literally it was like that. No clue about this. What is this? What can I do with it? How do I learn about it? And then just charging forward on that, and then opening more opportunities for questions, for learning through a ton of challenges. But in spite of the challenges and in spite of the limitations and the circumstances, what drove all things forward was that resilience and that dedication to the craft. Whatever I wanted to know, whatever I wanted to understand, whatever I want to conquer, it was not an obstacle, it was an opportunity. And it comes to tell how these things that happen, now that I can look back and say, well, you know, I started there, and I walked all of these meandering paths until I made it here. And it's easy to see, but when I started, it wasn't. And I didn't know where it was going to go or how it was going to unfold, and how anything would play about. And just the very fact that I came to the stage probably 20-something years ago, and I'm here in this stage speaking with you in this language and communicating this story is a testament to the resilience and the dedication that anyone can achieve when they set their minds to like do something that could start one day with a question when you don't imagine it, when I end up doing this thing. Today, any of us in here may have a question in our minds, a thing that could lead forward, that could unfold years ahead in something that we cannot anticipate what it is today, but it is possible, that is something wonderful, that is something rewarding, and the journey is the most important thing. Walking that path and going through those challenges and not walking away from the challenges that will come up. Because now when I look back, all those hours that I spent trying to do that stuff, I feel joy about that stuff, conquering the little things. And I tell you, sometimes there were very little things, like one bite, one tiny thing. So today I feel grateful that this journey put me in a path of obstacles and opportunities to prepare me for what came later. And right now I feel I'm starting a new phase, looking at new questions, looking at new motivations to unfold the future in front of me. Thank you.